Okay, welcome to the last chapters of the Twits. Today we're going to read 27, 28, and 29. So, before we get started, let's just remember what good readers do, right? They visualize, they create pictures in their heads from the author's descriptions and words, they make connections, they make predictions about what's going to happen, what they think is going to happen, and they have I wonders. I wonder if they're going to get caught. I wonder if, Roly Poly helps them. I wonder if Muggle Wump's idea is really a good idea. So those things help you stay connected and help you understand what's going on in the story. So they had turned the whole living room upside down the last we did, and the ravens kind of put glue on their heads. They thought it was poop. And now we're going to see what happens to them. Though they saw the monkeys, they were happy. The monkeys went back in their cages. I don't know if I would have done that, but anyway, let's see how this turns out. All right, the Twits are turned upside down. "What's this?" gasped Mr. Twit as they entered the living room. "What's happened?" screamed Mrs. Twit. They stood in the middle of the room looking up. All the furniture, the big table, the chairs, the sofa, the lamps, the little side tables, the cabinet with the bottles of beer in it, the ornaments, the electric fire, the carpet, everything was stuck upside down to the ceiling. The pictures were upside down on the walls, and the floor they were standing on was absolutely bare. What's more, it had been painted white to look like the ceiling. "Look!" screamed Mrs. Twit. "That's the floor! The floor's up there! This is the ceiling! We're standing on the ceiling!" "We're upside down!" gasped Mr. Twit. "We must be upside down!" "We are standing on the ceiling, looking down at the floor." "Oh, help!" screamed Mrs. Twit. "Help! Help! Help! I'm beginning to feel giddy." "So am I! So am I!" cried Mr. Twit. "I don't like this one bit." "We're upside down, and all the blood's going to our heads," screamed Mrs. Twit. "If we don't do something quickly, I shall die. I know I will." "I got it," cried Mr. Twit. "I know what we'll do. We'll stand on our heads. Then anyway, we'll be the right way up." So they stood on their heads, and of course, the moment the tops of their heads touched the floor, the sticky glue that the ravens had brushed on it a few minutes before did its job. They were stuck. They were pinned down, cemented glue fixed to the floorboards. Through the crack in the door, the monkeys watched. They jumped right out of the cage the moment the Twits had gone inside, and the Roly Poly Bird watched, and all the other birds flew in and out to catch a glimpse of this extraordinary sight. The monkeys' escape. That evening, Mugglewump and his family went up to the big wood on top of the hill, and in the tallest tree of all they built a marvelous tree house. All the birds, especially the big ones, and crows and rooks and magpies, made their nests around the treehouse so that nobody could see it from the ground. "You can stay up here forever, you know," the Roly Poly Bird said. "Oh, you can't stay up here forever, you know," the Roly Poly Bird said. "Why not?" asked Mugglewump. "It's such a lovely place." Just you wait until the winter comes," the Roly Poly Bird said. "Monkeys don't like cold weather, do they?" "They most certainly don't," cried Mugglewump. "Are the winters so very cold over there?" "It's all snow and ice," said Roly Poly Bird. "Sometimes it's so cold a bird will wake up in the morning and his feet frozen to the bough that it's been roosting on." Then what shall we do?" cried Mugglewump. "My family will all be deep freezed." "No, they won't," said Roly Poly Bird, "because when the first leaves start falling from the tree in the autumn, you can all fly to Africa with me." "Don't be ridiculous," Mugglewump said. "Monkeys can't fly." "You can sit on my back," said Roly Poly Bird. "I shall take one of you at a time. You will travel by Roly Poly Superjet, and it won't cost you a penny." "Oh, that's really nice. That's a good friend." The Twits get the shrinks. And down here in the horrid house, Mr. and Mrs. Twit are still stuck upside down to the floor of the living room. "It's all your fault," yelled Mr. Twit, thrashing his legs in the air. "You're the one, you ugly old cow, who went hopping around shouting, 'We're upside down, we're upside down.' And you're the one who said to stand on our heads so it would be right away up. You whiskery old warthog," screamed Mrs. Twit. "Now we'll never get free. We're stuck here forever." "You may be stuck forever, Mr. Twit, but not for me. I'm going to get away." Mr. Twit wriggled and wormed, and he squiggled and wormed, and he twisted and turned, and he goggled and churned, but his sticky glue had him on the floor just as tightly as it once held those poor birds in the big dead tree. He was still as upside down as ever, standing on his head. But heads are not made to be stood on. If you stand on your head for a very long time, the hard thing happens. And when this was where Mr. Twit got his biggest shock of all. With so much weight on it from above, his head began to get squashed into his body. Quite soon it had disappeared completely, sunk out of sight in the fatty folds of his flabbery neck. "I'm shrinking," blurbed Mr. Twit. "So am I," cried Mrs. Twit. Oh, boy. "Help me! Save me! Call a doctor!" yelled Mr. Twit. "I'm getting the dreaded shrinks." And so he was. Mrs. Twit getting the dreaded shrinks too. And this time it wasn't a fake. It was the real thing. Their heads shrank into their necks. Then their necks began shrinking into their bodies, and their bodies began shrinking into their legs, and their legs began shrinking into their feet. And 1 week later, on a nice sunny afternoon, a man called Fred came round to read the gas meter. When nobody answered the door, Fred peeped into the house, and there he saw on the floor of the living room 2 bundles of old clothes, 2 pairs of shoes, and a walking stick. There was nothing more left in this world of Mr. and Mrs. Twit. And everyone, including Fred, shouted hooray. And that is it for the Twits. Well, what do you think of the ending? Did they get what they deserved? I don't know. But the world was a happier place now without them. And so that will be good because they weren't very kind people, that's for sure. So some good lessons in here, right? They showed friendship. Roly Poly Bird was really generous to take them back to Africa where the warm weather will be and where they originally came from. So again, I'd like to hear your thoughts. You can put it in the comments of what you thought of the story. And, definitely, if you haven't read any other Roald Dahl books, he is a great author and children do love him. And you can also compare similarities to his writing style because he uses some similarities within his writing. You'll be able to make some more connections. So look for them on here because I will be putting some more Roald Dahl books on here soon. Okay? Again, thank you for joining me. And between now and then, make sure you keep on reading. Have a great day.